Hey there, we got the bar talk with the Nugginator. Today we got Susan Johnson. She's gonna tell us her stories and see what she got to say about living on the rock. How you doing today, Miss Susan?
A lot better.
All right, well let's get into it. So you were how old when you guys moved on to the rock?
About one.
About 1 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And you were born in what year?
1947.
1947. So you got uh, moved on the rock about 1948 or 1947.
I think we moved on in 1947. I wasn't very old.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
remember it.
At, at what point do you remember what's your earliest memory of your age living on Alcatraz?
My earliest memory. Oh, God. Probably Halloween.
Halloween?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what you were?
Nurses. My first
Nurses?
memory, yeah. My mom made us, Jerry and I, nurse uniforms to go with Halloween.
And then you ended up growing up to be a nurse, right?
Right.
Right.
My
That's crazy.
mom, her sister, we have aunts that were midwives, we have nurses clear back in our history.
Nice. All right, so when when you guys woke up on a normal day and got ready for school and whatnot. Walk me through what a normal day would look like as far as waking up and so forth.
Okay, we'd get up and get dressed, go in and eat breakfast. Mom always had breakfast for us. The thing I remember most was in our kitchen, we had a panorama windows that looked out onto the Bay Bridge. And we could watch the boats go by and all the traffic and it's beautiful. There's a movie. Then we'd go when it was time to go, we had to go down to the dock and get ready to get on the boats.
Tell us about the boat.
The boat was our main boat was the Warden Johnson. And down in the bottom of it where the engines were, we had a place just for us. It was kind of like a church room. It had pews in it, and that's where the kids sat. So the adults that were upstairs couldn't hear us. Several times they brought prisoners on board because they had to go to San Francisco to go to
Mm-hmm.
litigation, and when they brought them on, they'd have us all in there. And then the guards would come in with their machine guns, and there was a cell in the very front of us. And then they'd bring in the prisoner, put him in the cell, and the guards would line up around it, and we'd go to San Francisco.
Would you kids be scared when that happened?
No, it happened all too often. We weren't, I was 1 year old. That was just normal.
Yeah.
We had
When
to,
you so after you guys got to the to San Francisco, and did you guys walk to school? Did you ride a bus? How did what happened then?
we could ride the municipal bus, the city bus, if it was bad out. But most of the time we
Okay.
walked. We had to go up Lombard Street, which is I think it was Lombard, goes straight up from the dock from, uh, up to the top of the hill. And that's where we had to go to catch the bus.
Okay. Did you ever get in any mischief while you were over in San Francisco?
Never. The one time that I remember is we had a guy on the island. His name was Bobby Hart, but we called him Three Fingers Hart because he sucked his three fingers. And he's got pictures in the Collier's magazine delivering newspapers. But he was the leader of the gang, and we got off the bus and started walking to school. And in San Francisco, they don't have big yards in the front. They just have little square areas with dirt in it and maybe a bush or something. And we decided that it had just rained that night. We could have a mud ball fight. There were 60 kids out there, and probably 30 went to public schools and 30 went to parochial schools. So anytime people in San Francisco saw those groups of kids, they knew who we
Mm-hmm.
were, and they called the prison, and the prison would get all the fathers. When we got finished with school, we got home, and the fathers in their uniforms are all lined up at the dock so they could take care of the kids, and we all got spankings.
That's back in the day when you could actually spank your kids, huh?
Oh, yeah. And what my parents
You,
said, that my dad was so strict on us because there was so much danger out there. You know, if we didn't do what he
well,
said or she said, we could hurt ourselves or get hurt.
yeah, I can see that. Um, did your mom work while you lived on the island?
When Joan went to school, started school, Mom went to work, and she worked at Otis Elevator. But when Joan went to school, Mom went to work, and she worked for Otis
Yep.
Elevator. And if you get in an
Okay.
elevator almost anywhere in the United States, it's probably one she wired.
Well, when she worked and one of you girls were sick, did you guys stay home by yourself?
Not if we were real young, like if Jerry was young, she couldn't stay with us. Well, Mom didn't work until we were old enough for Jerry to stay with us. I don't
And
remember getting sick.
you don't remember being sick as a kid?
The only time I did, we'd gone camping up in the Yosemite, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
we were down by our stream, and my dad came running out and picked me up and threw me in the river because I'd been in a poison ivy um,
Hmm.
bush, and he wanted to get the pollen off of me. And I had poison ivy everywhere. Any place you could touch on my body, I had it. My mom would take me out on the walkway and set me out on the porch and try to dry up the blisters. The prison had one doctor. I don't think he was a real doctor. A doctor who's like a physician's assistant now. and he
Mm-hmm.
only took care of the prison people, the prisoners and things. But
Yeah.
because of my dad's stature, he came down and took care of me.
When you had the poison ivy.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that for a long time.
So tell us about this picture of you and your sister Jerry and a bird in the window. What significance does it have?
For me, it has the whole story of us living on Alcatraz. The bird. My dad raised birds in our basement, and if he had problems with them, he went and he talked to the bird man of Alcatraz, and they figured out together they were trying to make a um, albino parakeet. That's what kind of birds he had, was parakeets. And that was a big part of our life. We'd go down and feed them and take care of these birds. We had them in 64 building, and we had them in one of the cottages. He said,
Okay.
"I'm Captain Jinks of the Horse Marines. I teach young ladies how to dance. I'm Captain Jinks of the Horse Marines." He said all of that. He called us to dinner. He called us, answered the phone. He was a really
Who, the
smart,
bird?
huh?
The bird?
Yeah. My mom would sit and talk to him all the time, and this bird could really talk. Okay.
Huh.
The second thing is you can see in the picture the gate that separated the families from the prison. So the guards or the prisoners couldn't get us, and we couldn't get to them. And it was like being in a big cell. We were in as much
Hmm.
contained as the prisoners were.
Did you feel
Then
like you were in jail at times?
I didn't, because I was so young, I just grew up with it. I never felt like I
Yeah.
was. My If you had somebody come to visit you, you had to have the FBI investigate the family before they would let, if I had a friend come over from San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
I had one girl parents that said it was all right for her to come to Alcatraz. The rest of the parents said, no, we're not letting our kids go over there.
Yeah.
Okay, you see the fence. If you look up, you see the prison. And that's how close we lived to the prison. Now, that's a scary thing, isn't
Okay.
it?
I don't know. I could only imagine.
Yeah, but we never saw them except like when we took the boat. There was a yellow line on the dock, and they would line up all the prisoners on the line before we could go down there. So, and they count them and make sure that's where they were. So we saw the prisoners then. We saw the prisoners when they brought them in, like they brought in prisoners uh, that had been naughty at another prison, and they would bring them in at night. And we couldn't go outside and watch it, but we could watch it from the windows. And they had leg chains on and handcuffs and very, very downtrodden. They all had their heads down. That's one of the things I remember most is them holding their heads down. And and the, and then they came and picked up our trash, And we had to be in the house when they picked up the trash. We couldn't be outside, but they would leave us presents. They would go through the garbage and find toys that somebody had thrown away and leave them on our doorsteps. They'd pick flowers and leave them on our doorstep for us. They always left us gifts.
When you live on the island, you experienced one break, right?
One break. We came
Tell us
home.
a little bit about that.
We came home from school and all the sirens are going off because it was the only break that happened while we lived there. Um, Nobody knew what was going on. We'd never heard the sirens go off for break. And they came and they told us what we were going to do. We had to go home till our parents got home. Well, Mom was in San Francisco and Dad was at work. So that left the three girls in our apartment. After a while, they came and got us and took us to the other end of the cottages. It was Keppel's house until they got it secured. And they would come around every hour, look under the bed, go in the closets, make sure a prisoner hadn't snuck in from the break until they found all three of them. There was another break that happened, but we weren't on the island. We were on vacation. That happened out there.
So you mentioned earlier Collier's magazine, and in the previous episode we talked a little bit about how your sister was on the cover. Were you, as a sister, were you a little jealous that maybe they picked Joan instead of you or your other sister?
No, I wasn't jealous. She,
No.
there was another picture in the magazine. It's a kid looking through the fence, and the
Mm-hmm.
parents were kind of split. Who should be on the cover? Should it be that kid or should it have been Joan? And we didn't know, our family did not know who was going to be on the cover till we were going camping and Dad stopped at a gas station, went in, and they'd just come out that morning and there was his daughter on the cover of Collier's magazine. She was a cutie.
She was a little cute kid, huh? When you guys transitioned from Alcatraz to Leavenworth, one notorious prison to another notorious prison, how was that like? How was that like being on an island going to the middle of the United States where you probably got a lot more privileges and a lot more chances to do a little bit more things than you were ever known to and ever done as a kid?
On the way on our trip out there, we drove out there and we stopped in Tucumcari, New Mexico, and it was snowing. The first time we saw snow. That was a big deal. And then we got to Leavenworth and we lived in one apartment, and then they got us a house on uh, uh, the Missouri side of the Missouri River. There was one guard and all these trustees that worked in the fields and grew, huh? A prison farm. And my husband knows more about this than I do. This is where we met. They grew all the vegetables and things for the for the prisoners to eat. But, back then we didn't have all these regulations, and don't spray this and don't spray that. But my mother was scared to death with one guard
Yeah.
and all these prisoners across the street from us. But when we got there, we had a Missouri mule, we had a squirrel in a cage, we had some swings that the prisoners put up for us because they knew we were coming. And most of them had seen us grow up on Alcatraz. And then, when school started, we got to ride the school bus. We'd never been on a school bus. I didn't know boys made spit wads and threw them on the school bus. I didn't know a lot of things about boys. Boys on Alcatraz had so many more privileges than girls did. They could go fishing. They could go over to Angel Island and play baseball, but girls couldn't.
Why?
Just because we were girls, they're afraid something was going to happen to us. When
Do you
if we had clothes that needed to be thrown away because they were old, my mom had to cut them up. She couldn't put them in the garbage because the prisoners would get them and sleep with them. Underwear. The
mm,
prisoners did our laundry. You know, there's a book out that Al Capone did my laundry. They made a lot of kids in grade school read it. It was one of the book of the year. And
huh.
that the prisoners did our laundry, but mom put our clothes and our underwear and stuff on a line that dad put up for her to do that. When we
After
first moved,
leaving Alcatraz,
the prison didn't have
okay.
regular electricity. They had VC electricity instead of AC
Mm-hmm.
electricity. Dad got a converter so mom could have a washing machine and uh, appliances like I remember when she got a electric frying pan. That was a big deal because she could use the converter. Oh, what was I going to say?
And as I remember right, you were saying that your family had the first television on the island?
Yes. And we lived on the second floor, and they had to bring it down this set of stairs from the little part. Do you know the difference between the little playground and the big playground?
I don't.
You never. The little playground was right underneath 60, now to the side of 64 building, and it wasn't very big, but it had things like fire ladders on it. If there was a fire in the building, they would come and get the fire ladder. Well, when they weren't using it for what they were supposed to be using it for, we used to take the ladders off, put them on the ground. The little kids would get in between the steps, and they were the prisoners, and the big kids were the guards. We didn't play cowboys and Indians. We played prisoners and guards. Yeah. Oh, that was the little playground. The big playground was where the handball building is. The men played handball, and the boys played handball, but the girls couldn't play handball. There was at first there was only one sandbox, and it had all the swings and uh, all the playground equipment in it. And then they decided there was too many kids for all of them to be in the sandbox at the same time. So they built one on the other side of the handball court. It was really nice on the old um, sandbox because we got the sun. On the other one, we got the wind. It was so cold we couldn't go out there. On the big playground, they played baseball. We skate. It's where in the when the army had Alcatraz, it was called the parade ground, and that's where they marched and did their drills and things.
So tell us about the TV.
Oh, that's where we were going. The TV. We were the first ones on Alcatraz to have a TV, and they took ropes. Jerry and I sat. I don't. Joan might have been there. No, she wasn't born. We sat on the steps, and they lowered the TV down from the little playground down to the second floor to get into our apartments. Oh, that's a memory I'll never forget. That TV. I don't know how they ran it because we didn't have
Do
a converter down there.
do you ever keep in touch with kids that you may have grown up with on Alcatraz?
I've talked to two of them, but we don't talk long. The one was
Okay.
um, Warden's daughter, and she would babysit us. She was a teenager when we were little, and she would babysit us. I babysat her kids, and my kids babysat her kids.
Which warden was her father?
You shouldn't have asked me that. Madigan.
Madigan. From what I understand, your father got along with most of the wardens there on the island, correct?
Yes, because he kept everything quiet. They didn't have any break prison breaks. He ran the jailhouse so that everybody knew what the rules were, and if you broke them, you had consequences.
Tell me, there was a story you were telling me one time that you had to go back in. You were working as a nurse and you got
Oh,
called into either a prison or a jail or some sort. Tell us
yeah.
that story.
After we got married and I was working as a nurse, nobody ever believed me that I lived on Alcatraz. So anyway, I was working in a doctor's office in Oklahoma, and we got a call saying that the prisoners all had the flu down at the city jail, and they didn't want us to see them in the office to spread whatever flu it was. And so we went to the jail. When the doors slammed behind me, I got claustrophobic. I was so scared. Uh, and doctor turned around and he said, Susan, you grew up on Alcatraz. Why does this make you feel like that? And I said, because I've never been in a prison. I've never been in a jail. I've never seen anything like this. Then one of the prisoners raised his hand up and said, when were you there? And I told him the years that we were there. And he said, oh, I was there then too.
Did he happen to remember your father?
Yeah, he knew
Yeah,
Dad. He was there when we were there. You would think that would keep him out of jail.
you would think.
Yeah.
As you would go back to reunions on Alcatraz, and whatnot, what kind of emotions or feelings did you get when you would go back and see it now and see how it is and
It's very
shut
sad.
down and
Yeah. My mom got the one time she went back, they took because she was the wife of Dad. They took her on a tour of our apartment where we lived in 64 building.
hmm
When you get off the boat, there you go into a museum that they have down. You go from the dock into the museum. It's the bottom of 64 building. And that's where your mother's picture is almost a life-size picture of the Collier magazine picture. And
hmm.
then there's probably a 4-inch picture of me and Joan in there. And they sell a recipe book that all the women on Alcatraz at the time um, put together and made into a book, and they still sell it. Recipe book
Oh,
from
nice.
Alcatraz. Gary has a copy. I don't know if your mom does.
Think what do you think about the rumors of President Trump possibly wanting to open the prison?
What do I think? I think that President Trump is a master of misdirection. If he wants to do something that's controversial, make something up like redoing Alcatraz so that the people in the United States don't know what he's really doing. That, that's political, isn't it?
What's more controversial than opening up one of the most controversial prisons ever in United States
Yeah.
history, or probably even the world?
Uh-huh. But it would cost
Um,
billions of dollars to restore it. Oh, I was going to tell you
so
it's another story. Down when you go into
okay, go ahead.
when you go into the museum, you can go out the back door, and that
Mm-hmm.
was where the dungeons are. They're all um, cemented up now, and the walkway that was at the top of the dungeons, it was like a grill, and it went all the way
Mm-hmm.
across, so that I guess if anybody, it would keep people from going down there. But there were steps that went down there, and we went down there, and the dungeon doors had a step up to them, and we would get up on that step and put on plays. We played a lot down in the dungeons, and the um, towers, the guard towers, those big ones. They
Yeah.
couldn't see us. They most they had sight of most everything on Alcatraz, but if we'd go down into the dungeons, they couldn't see what we were doing. We could walk clear down to the end, and there was another iron gate that looked into the prisoners' play yard. And if we'd go down there at that time, we could see the prisoners. I don't know if they saw us peeking at them or not. That's
Hmm.
another thing we did. Go to the dungeons.
If they would have caught you peeking into the recreational area of the prison, do you think you guys would have been in trouble?
Oh, yeah. We weren't supposed to be down there at all. I think that
So
my
let's.
dad would have been in trouble about it because weren't in control. We weren't following the rules. We had a lot of rules. And that was a big one. You didn't go down there.
and
You
and
know
so
about the
tell me
telephone?
about this. the telephone.
Yeah, we didn't have telephones in our apartments. We had to go to a telephone booth down at the little grocery store in the 64 building if we wanted to call the mainland, or at the time you didn't make very many telephone calls because it cost too much. But in our apartment and in the cottage, we had a red phone. And we knew another rule that you never touch the red phone. It was a phone that went directly to the prison so they could get that at a minute's notice to take care of whatever was going on. It's kind of like the
So
president.
tell us about what would happen. Tell us about what would happen during Christmas time.
Oh, Christmas time. Um, at a certain time, and it was dark out, they would we would all gather at the gate going down to the social hall. And one time, Bobby Hart, Three Fingers Hart, had told us all that we could see Santa Claus going across the moon in a sled. And, a kid's imagination, we could actually see him. We thought we saw Santa Claus flying across the moon. It's probably a cloud. And then we walked down to the social hall after somebody came and let us out of the gate. And we got down there and we'd sing all the Christmas carols. We'd have Christmas cookies and punch. And then Santa Claus would come. And Santa Claus had presents for every single kid on the island. One time, Bobby Hart started the rumor that our dad played Santa Claus. And it got so bad that everybody thought that's who it was. The next Christmas, the guards walked Santa Claus in, and one of the guards was our dad. And everybody was shocked that he wasn't Santa Claus.
Would he have fit Santa Claus's stature pretty well?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He just wouldn't have had a beard.
Were prison guards allowed to have beards then?
No, no. Because the
I didn't.
prisoners
I
could
didn't think
grab
so.
them.
Yeah. So, well, hey, I thank you for coming on to Bar Talk and sharing your experiences and your memories. And I know America and everybody will appreciate this. So
Well, I
thank you and
appreciate
have a
you.
great day.
I appreciate you having me on. Bye bye.